We are very honored to welcome our last two eminent speakers who will share their conclusions with us. To start, I will welcome François Beck, who is the Director of Prevention and Health Promotion at Santé Publique France. François, I think you can go to the pupitre.
Okay, so good evening to all. First, I would like to thank all the speakers for the richness of their presentation. The three moderators of the session, Viet Nguyen Tan, Caroline Costongs, and Myriam Savi, and also the organizers of this great event. In particular, I would like to express my special thanks to all those who have worked on this symposium. Guillemette Quatremer, Jennifer Davis, Maïka Crasher-Solomon from Santé Publique France, our partners Samuele Tonello and David Argit from EuroHealthNet, and François Bévan and his team from Formule Magique. It was absolutely perfect. Thank you to all. I would also like to thank all the participants here on site and online because the discussions were really fascinating. I'm particularly pleased to close this symposium with Professor John Newton, the distinguished chairman of our Scientific Advisory Board in Santé Publique France. So today's sessions have allowed us to explore the complexities of reducing the burden of alcohol, focusing on two challenges, the low-risk drinking guidelines and the lobbying activities of the alcohol industry. And a number of things struck me during the course of the day. This morning, we learned valuable lessons about developing and communicating low-risk drinking guidelines. Our discussions have highlighted the importance of basing these guidelines on the most rigorous scientific evidence, but we also noted that different strategic choices are being made according to the countries. These strategies attempt to reconcile the most accurate information, problems of understanding, and specific issues of acceptability in order to elaborate the most precise and impactful guidelines. This was the case, for example, with the risk continuum strategy in Canada that has been presented by Catherine Paradis. However, as underlined in the presentation by John Holmes and Pierre Arvidsson, we were reminded that these guidelines can only be truly efficient in changing people's behavior if they effectively reach their target. The dissemination of these guidelines appears to be a crucial factor in their success. Emily Brennan demonstrated how the media campaign that incorporate both messages about long-term alcohol-related harm and low-risk drinking guidelines show promising effects, not only in terms of raising awareness and reshaping attitudes toward alcohol, but also in terms of impacts on behavior. Moreover, these campaigns can also indirectly reinforce public acceptance of other regulatory measures that further reduce alcohol-related harm. In this way, they play a part in a process of denormalization of alcohol use. Nevertheless, disseminating such messages is not enough to build an effective prevention. Building a harm reduction approach on alcohol is a major challenge. As stated this morning, the low-risk drinking guidelines have their own limits. They can contribute to normalize alcohol consumption. They can even sometimes be hijacked by the alcohol industry. So, while the guidelines and persuasive campaigns are essential tools to help reduce the alcohol burden, they are only part of the solution. We must also look to other effective strategies such as alcohol taxation, advertising limitations, especially that aimed at adolescents and young people on social media. In addition, we need to innovate by implementing recommended measures that can work together in synergy. In France, for example, from 1991 to 2009, a law known as the Evin Law provided a protective framework for young people's exposure to alcohol advertising in the media. Even if today regulation in digital media and on social networks is much more difficult to implement than it was the case than it was in the case of television. Other significant successes include the taxation of alcopops in France in 1996 and Venipops in 2019. These successes have shown that it can be done, and that we need to fight on different fronts, scientific, political, and by mobilizing civil society and the media. On its side, the alcohol industry is likely to influence alcohol consumption using a number of activities, including commercial, political, and advocacy activities. The afternoon sessions focused on the alcohol industry's lobbying practices to influence public policy decisions, as the tobacco, fossil energy, and junk food sectors do. Marc Petitcroux, Franz Bertelletti, and Daniel Benamouzi has given us an excellent explanation of the alcohol industry's processes for influencing health policy at international, European, and national levels. We saw how active, very organized, and very well endowed are the economic lobbies. But sometimes they don't succeed. Daniel Benamouzi gave us examples of failures from the alcohol industry in France, which depends on the ability of sector players to build sufficiently broad political coalitions to put forward their point of view and influence regulation. Yunan McKinney also shared with us the success story of the enactment of the Irish Public Health Alcohol Act, a story of big ambition and persistence. The obstacles are many, but all the exchanges with the speakers and the audience today has given us both hope and keys to make public health more effective to tackle economic interests that have a negative impact in our countries. And we warmly thank you for that. Health policies must include measures of different kinds, acting on the environment of individuals and addressing the individuals themselves. To build, defend, and implement these policies, it's essential to cross perspectives, disciplines, and to promote complementary approaches. Today, only a minority of countries already have a comprehensive national alcohol control plan, despite growing evidence of the effectiveness of certain measures in terms of behavior change. Today's symposium underscores several key lessons that we need to reflect on as we move forward. These collective discussions does not end here. We need to continue working together to share insights, build advocacy strategies, support each other in the goal of reducing alcohol-related harm and tackling social inequalities, which is one of our greatest challenges in public health. Thank you for all your commitment, contributions, and dedication to this major issue. To Professor John Newton, the conclusion of this conclusive part.
François, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure, it's an honor to be closing this excellent day, to have the last word. It's also, I should say, a responsibility not to keep you too long. So just to reiterate our thanks, I think on behalf of all of us, our thanks for the organisers has been really well done. So thank you very much. Both, I think, the two agencies who had the idea of bringing everyone together for this purpose is fantastic. But also, the individuals who've involved. And of course, all our contributors. I mean, we've had some excellent presentations, including one from Australia, which I thought worked very well. I don't know if I've ever been to a seminar where all the tech has worked as well as it has today. So thank you very much. So what to say from me? I just want to, well, firstly, take us back to the very first session. We had three short talks. Firstly, Caroline Semay illustrated the burden of alcohol harms, using France as the example. We then had a very insightful view from Tina, who works in the Minister's office in Belgium, on the reality, the realpolitik of trying to get policies through. But also, actually, she finished with a commitment, which I thought was very powerful, and we mustn't forget that. And then moving to Karina, we had a note of optimism. So you described not just the excellent work of WHO Europe, but also, you mentioned a few of the examples. So I think we should be optimistic. There is a lot to build on. And then the presentations, of course, we learned an enormous amount from the presentations. I'd like to just leave you with one thought, one question, really, for you. How do we move from what we know, and we know a lot, to what we do, which is, of course, what matters in the end. And perhaps you'd all want to go away and think, as you travel back, some of you traveling further, so you'll be able to write, well, some of you not traveling very far, you might just have to think about what you're going to do, whether you're going to do it differently from a result of the seminar, but namely what you're going to do. What am I going to do? On Thursday, I'm going to present to the board of Santé Publique France the recommendations of the scientific committee on alcohol. And we're going to tell the board of the agency we want them to do 5 things. We want them to have a strategy which is comprehensive. Yes, it has social marketing, but also it must address the social determinants of alcohol problems, which means working with others, of course, outside your remit, and addressing health inequalities. And thirdly, it needs to address the regulatory and the other interventions which we know work. So a broad strategy. Secondly, the agency needs to build partnerships, possibly even lead some of those partnerships. And we've had a lot of discussion about that, the importance of harmonization. Again, WHO Europe, as Catherine said, could help perhaps with networks to build partnerships internationally. But we know the value of partnerships and the value of agreement, and we've heard a lot about that. And of course, thirdly, watch out for the industry, expose and challenge the industry. And I won't say more there because we've had really excellent masterclass in working with the industry. And again, I would commend the WHO playbook on how to work with the industry. France, of course, is in a particularly tricky position because the industry is so powerful and so well integrated with the political masters. And then just a couple more things which are perhaps more specific to Santé Publique France is to continue with the research, the surveillance, the data, the excellent reputation that Santé Publique France has internationally for its surveillance is really powerful here. So we need to do more of that, continue to carry on with that. And then finally, and here I realized, well, this was a very important point, finally, is to engage with the public and to empower the public, recognizing the finer points which Florence mentioned about not relying on public support, but there are groups within the public who are experiencing the health harms of alcohol every day, and they can be very, very powerful advocates alongside the professionals, alongside the political champions, and alongside, of course, the NGOs, which I, again, fully support your point that we need to fund the NGOs. So there we go. Those are just my thoughts, my actions, but you'll have your own. So thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for all of those online who've been here, and we're going to close the day there, I think, yet.
Thank you so much, François and John, for your conclusion. The end of the symposium is coming really close now, and I think we've exchanged a lot, we've learned a lot, but in addition to these cognitive processes and advances, I am convinced that one of the great achievements of this day is that we have strengthened our international network of health professionals all together. We've built bridges, we've created alliances, and I believe that it is a very precious accomplishment of this day. So thank you all, and see you soon to continue this work together. Thank you.